Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Today we're going to begin chapter 47 in the book of Genesis. And 2 days ago we finished chapter 46, and if you remember at the end of it, Joseph told his brothers, hey, when you stand before Pharaoh, make sure you're honest with your profession. And at the beginning of this chapter, we're going to see if they followed his advice. Beginning in Genesis 47, chapter 47, verse 1, it says this. Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and brothers with their flocks and herds and everything they own have come from the land of Canaan and are now in Goshen. He chose 5 of his brothers and presented them before Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked the brothers, what is your occupation? Your servants are shepherds, they replied to Pharaoh, just as our fathers were. They also said to him, we have come to live here for a while because the famine is severe in Canaan and your servants' flocks have no pasture. So now, please let your servants settle in Goshen. So let's just pause there. First of all, good job, boys. You did the right thing. You were honest. But as we see here too, isn't it amazing that God will give us opportunities to see where our integrity lies? It's just interesting that in the previous chapter, Joseph was like, hey guys, make sure you're honest. And then in the next chapter, they're given an opportunity to be honest. And we're so thankful that they passed that test with integrity. Let's go on to verse 5. It says, Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in Goshen, and if you know of any among them with special ability, put them in charge of my own livestock. Then Joseph brought his father Jacob in and presented him before Pharaoh. After Jacob blessed Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, how old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage of my fathers. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his presence. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramesses, as Pharaoh directed. Joseph also provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food according to the number of their children. Now, this is so crazy. It's so crazy what favor they are experiencing here. Remember, Pharaoh doesn't owe them nothing. They haven't done anything to deserve this. This is literally the blessing of God being flowed out through Pharaoh in the form of favor over who Joseph is. And I think it's so interesting, as we've talked about this numerous times throughout these last few weeks, but Joseph remained faithful. He remained faithful when things were good, and he remained faithful to God when things were very, very bad. He remained faithful when he was enslaved. He remained faithful when he was imprisoned. And I wonder, as he's sitting in jail for years, mind you, in prison for a crime he never even committed, if you want to go back and read the Potiphar's wife story. And yet while he was there, he remained faithful and honored God. Do you think there was ever a night as he's sitting up in jail looking, maybe he had a little window that he could just see the sky from? I don't know. Maybe his cell was dark. I have no idea. But could you imagine in the quietness of night, did it ever even come to his mind that one day he would be standing before Pharaoh, who would be offering his entire family the best portion of Egypt, providing them with property and with land and with food for their families, that Pharaoh would actually be doing this for his family as he's sitting in jail? The thought never crossed his mind. He probably did not understand what his faith could accomplish. But as he remained faithful to God, God was working things out behind the scenes in a beautiful way. God was working things out in and through Joseph to position him into a place that he could bless him and preserve his family. You know, I understand that sometimes remaining faithful to God can be difficult. There's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of opportunities to just be like, you know what, justifying behaviors or abandoning or ignoring our time with the Lord, or not living with his motives and his models as our guide, but doing our own motives and our own. I get it. But this is such a beautiful example to remind us of the byproduct of being faithful to God. Not only do you live in God's blessings, not only do you get to experience his presence in such a beautiful way and follow in the footsteps of Jesus. But when we are faithful, we might not always understand. We might not always see what God's doing in the moment. But this gives us a fast forward approach to say, look what God did in his life. Look, nothing was wasted. And that's what I want to encourage you with. God sees your faithfulness. God sees your integrity at work. God sees you resisting that temptation. God sees the grace and forgiveness that you are offering people in your family, even when they don't deserve it. God sees your faithfulness and dedication to your time with him, getting into his word and spending time in prayer. God sees your service and sacrifice at your church or in your community. God sees your faithfulness. Do not let the enemy lie to you. Then what's the point? It doesn't even matter. I get it. Sometimes people will not applaud us for the faithfulness to God in our lives. You might not always get a gold star or an attaboy, but God sees. God sees what you do in quiet. God sees what you do in private. God sees what you do consistently. Remain faithful. You may not understand it. You may not even see it yet, but God sees it, and he's going to bless you and honor the faithfulness in your life. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.